the thing that happens to us is that when the season starts, I have about an 8-week harvest period. And that's 8 weeks, and if you recall, it's mentioned about 60 to 70,000 pounds of berries that are picked in 8 weeks. It's crazy, and we're trying to market all of them. We're trying to package all of them. I don't have time then to make good decisions. I don't want to have to make decisions then. I have a business plan for that, and I have to trust my sustainability plan that I came up with the winter before. Again, example, if I have a week where we're picking 4,000 pounds of berries, but I'm only going to sell, I only have markets for 1,500 pounds of those berries. What am I going to do with the other 2,500 pounds? In the past, back in the mid-90s, before I had created a different plan, I would go to my stores or to my different marketing outlets, and I would lower my price because I needed to get rid of the berries. It's a perishable item. Wrong thing to do. But I panicked. I didn't have a plan in place that would enable me to do what I needed to do. So at the end of the year, when I was reviewing what happened, my poundage was good. I had the volume that I wanted, but I didn't have the price per pound that I wanted, because back in that 1 week in August, when I panicked, I lowered my price by 25 cents a pound. Well, 25 cents a pound, you times that by 3,000 pounds, that's a fairly significant part of your profit that doesn't show up. Everything else is the same, your costs and whatnot. So I knew I had to make adjustments. So the adjustment that I made, and we'll talk, I believe next week we'll talk more about marketing, but one of the adjustments I made is, wait a minute, I don't have to sell these. I don't have to lower my price. I can just put them in the freezer, because blueberries freeze very well, and then I'll sell them all winter long. In fact, I'll sell them all winter. I'll even raise the price. I'll figure out how much it costs me to freeze them, the extra costs, et cetera, to transport them, to freeze them, to box them, to repack them. And then I'll add another 25% just for the trouble of doing it. And it's worked. In fact, now we're at the point where we probably sell 50% of our berries, probably about 45% of our berries are sold on the frozen market. We're still selling berries right now, in case anybody's interested. So that wasn't part of my marketing plan, 12 years ago. It evolved into that by having the time and the foresight and, pat myself on the back, problem-solving skills. Actually, it was my daughter that said, "Dad, these berries are really good frozen. How come you don't sell them that way?" Sometimes the best ideas come about that way. So, again, being flexible with your marketing, being flexible with your plan each year is very important. We have that ability, we have that time here in the winter to plan ahead for our harvest time. It's very, very difficult to make decisions during the season, especially it is for me. Again, the short period of income, we have yearly expenses, and that's the other thing with the plan. When you look at your business plan, it's really quite simple. You don't have to be real complicated about this. You get one piece of paper that has your expenses on it, and you got another piece of paper that has your income. We're fairly lucky because our income comes basically from blueberries. We don't have a lot. We have some blackberries, we have some raspberries. We don't have 12 other items that we're creating income from, although we have expanded our marketing to frozen berries, which is a completely different thing. We have value-added products, which again it's blueberries, but it's a different part of our expense and income. We have plants that we end up selling and marketing in the springtime. So we have expanded because there's a market out there for them, and we've seen that. But more importantly, we needed ways to create more income to offset the expense list. When you're looking at your expenses, there's some things that don't change from year to year, as Barbara mentioned. Hopefully, we're lucky enough that we own the property, we own all the buildings on the property, but we do have, your taxes and your insurance. Those are fixed expenses that we have every year. the growing and production costs don't change a lot from year to year now that the berries are in full production. You know, the pruning costs of fertilizer, that kind of stuff stays pretty much the same. Our harvest costs, it's a flexible number depending on how we're marketing our berries. You know, how many are selling to you pick, how many are we paying our pickers to pick, so that kind of changes. But then there's some variable expenses. Are you going to, as Barbara mentioned, do you want to make some improvements on your farm? Do you want to buy a new tractor? I've been wanting to buy, I have in my business plan a expense for a new tractor for 20 years. I still have a 1953 Massey Ferguson that gets the job done because I can't justify spending the money on the tractor, although I would dearly love one, and I try to incorporate it into a business plan every year or 5 years down the road on my 5-year business plan, but it's always one of the first things that kind of gets scratched off of that 5-year or 3-year plan. I should mention now that we are, for the first 10 years in business, from 92 to 02, every year I updated my 10-year plan, so I always had a 10-year plan in front of me. Now, though, now that our crop is a lot more consistent, everything's on a consistent basis, we're more on a 3 to 5 year plan, and probably stay on a 3-year plan because things are pretty consistent there. So, but when you're looking at your expenses, you know, what kind of improvements do you want to make? You always have to put a certain percentage of money for repairs. You know, it's something that you can't really project. I always project high on the repairs, and if there's money left over from our repair budget, then that can go into the Mexico budget or the goofing around budget. But always, again, it's something that when I was first starting, I didn't have repairs on there, and you know, again, 3 years in, something happened. I can't remember what it was, but it cost us an extra $3,000. I did not have that budgeted. I had to go to my wife and say, "Hey, babe, you know, did you budget for that?" And no, well, next year do that, which I do every year now. So again, looking at, and everybody's expense deal, their own farm and their own business is going to be a little bit different. We've also, in the last few years, because of our income increase in our production, increase of our income, we have next year's operating budget included in that. So I know what it's going to take. Again, I don't have any money coming in, although now I do because of the frozen berries, but that's going to dry up here pretty soon. But then in April, I'm going to need fertilizer. I'm going to have to pay for pruners. I'm going to have to do some. I'm going to have expenses. Where's that money going to come from? So now I have budgeted from last year's crop this next year's operating expenses, so I don't have to dip into other monies, my wife's account, to pay for those the operating expenses for this year. So your expenses, again, everybody's got to look at those. Be honest. That's one of the things that Barbara mentioned. You know, honesty. You know, the three. I'm skipping around a little bit here. Now I'll get this way. The 3 most important things to a successful plan, of course, is honesty. Your knowledge of everything and every aspect of your sales. You need to know how much fuel you're using. You need to know the cost of fuel. You need to know if you're selling blueberries, you're having we use gallon bags to put those in. You know, they only cost like 2 cents a bag. Well, I'm using 40,000 bags or 20,000 bags. That becomes an expense. And the third thing is you need to be not be afraid to diversify and be afraid of change going into each year. Things that work, cool. Things that don't work, don't be afraid to say, hey, I made a mistake with this, or I can do this a little bit better. Oops, little thing being. Okay, so expenses, you just got to call them. There you go. Income, same thing. Where am I going to get? Where's the money going to come from? Where's the money going to come from? Now, hopefully, you've done the research. You've done, you know that whatever you're producing is going to be a good product. One of the stories I tell all the time. I've been going to farmers markets here in Sandpoint and Coeur d'Alene for the whole 20 years that I've been in business, and except for just a handful of people in both those markets, there's different vendors every year. Very seldom do you see vendors last more than 2 to 3, in some cases 4 or 5 years. And it's not because they're not putting out a good product. Back quite contrarily, they put out a great product. I'll go to the farmer's market and there's a guy in there growing tomatoes, and they're the best tomatoes I've ever seen. Heads of lettuce, just the best stuff you can ever see. A year later, he's not there. And it's because he did not have a business plan or a financial feasibility plan to make that work. So I believe that those of you that are listening to this right now, whatever you're doing, raising cattle, growing whatever you're growing, you probably do that really well, and you're probably good at it. But as far as your financial planning, maybe you need some help there. Maybe that's where you need to put your energy. Marketing, maybe you need, and we'll talk more about that later on, but that's another huge part of what we need to do. The putting the product out on the table for most of us is not the hard part. It's making it work and making it sustainable. As I mentioned, for the first 10 or 12 years, 10 years anyway, 3 or 4 years into it, we were doing fine. We were breaking even, paying all the bills, except there was no money left over for me. And at some point, we needed to decide, we needed to make the decision, well, we're not a hobby farm. It is work. It is a job. And if it's a job, I need to make money doing this. How can we do that? So we needed to find ways to increase our income. We knew we had the berries. We needed to, and there's only several ways that you can control your income. You can have, for me, I can have more berries, I can have more product, or I can charge more for them. And you have to evaluate which of those things work for you the best way. I just looked at the clock, and I think I'm going to get shut off here in a couple minutes. So we diversify a lot. For us, we do U-pick sales on the farm. We do farmers markets. We do on-farm sales in a little store, and we have store sales. By far, the most profitable marketing technique for us is the U-pick sales. We don't have to pay for picking. We don't have to pay for containers. We don't have a lot of transportation, etc. So our goal from the very beginning is to get as much of our crop harvested by U-pickers as we possibly can. And my long-term goal now is that at some point, all our berries, all 60,000 pounds, will be harvested by people coming to U-pick, maybe a few pickers on the farm selling in our store, some of our steady customers that have been working with us for years, and then maybe a little bit of the farmers markets. But I would love to get out of the stores. Selling at the stores, wholesale to the stores, we get less money, and they want a lot more stuff. There's a lot more packaging, labeling, and a lot more expenses. So when I look, I could tell you exactly how much I make a pound in every selling method that I have, whether they're frozen, whether they're value added with our jams or syrup, whether they go to the store, whether they go to the farmer's market. You need to know those things. It may sound good. Oh, yeah, man, I went to the farmer's market today and I made a killing out there. I came home with all this money. Well, how much did it cost you to go to the farmer's market? Did you have to decorate your stuff up better? What expenses did you have to go to the farmer's market? So you need to look at all those different things. I had 5 pages here, and that's just the first page. But I think my time's up.
Thank you, Stan. That was a great talk with a lot of